A bigger and better border wall is one of Trump's major promises, but will it help solve the immigration crisis? I'm Oscar Margain. Along the border, the people that live between this fence and the border are sounding off tonight. This is reportedly Speaker Ryan's first visit to the South Texas border. I'm counting more or less 40 cars trying to make a line to get gas right now. After about 8 weeks growing in this farm, these vegetables are ready to be taken into the cafeteria where the menu is created around the produce that is grown here at the school.
In 2016 alone, 97,000 hours were utilized to protect the U.S.-Mexico border.
I made it across to the U.S. side in less than 5 minutes. Senator, you didn't necessarily address the eminent domain part of my question.
Thanks, Jack. Here's your mic.
I know you've consulted with the Border Patrol. Have you consulted with the people whose lands are being taken, sir? There are 325 residents here in Bayside, and it seems like no corner was left untouched by Harvey. Talk about Texas turning purple is in part due to the strong turnout by Latinos this year. They've designated this mile-long perimeter as ground zero where they believe the virus could still be present. But if Ramiro is to conquer the Everest, he's gonna need a training partner. Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Not saying that partner is me, of course. As you can see, there's a group of undocumented immigrants, a lot of children coming this way at this moment. At the same time, just across the river, we see the smugglers taking their rafts that they just packed up so that they can go and get some more people. This flask contains a Puerto Rican strain of Zika. So far, researchers have unearthed 1 bag of human remains currently inside this tent as they work to uncover 2 more on this burial site and 3 others on this side. There have been meetings held here all day long between business partners and sister cities on both sides of the border. They're discussing whether or not President Donald Trump will follow through on his promises to either change or even eliminate NAFTA.
If we don't come together as a region, we're going to get taken apart.
Border correspondent Oscar Margain is in Laredo. And Oscar, you're hearing that many times the drivers of the trucks are also victims.
That's right. I'm at an intersection of a popular truck stop and Interstate 35, about 30 miles south of the nearest Border Patrol checkpoint here in Laredo. Now, authorities say that undocumented immigrants and smugglers begin their journey in places like these, hiding in tight spaces and sometimes unknowingly to truck drivers.
Eyewitness News border correspondent Oscar Margain went to see what he could find out, and he joins us now live from Laredo. Oscar?
Yes, we're on Interstate 35, about 30 miles north of the actual border with Mexico. And this is a Border Patrol checkpoint in Laredo, one of the busiest in the country. Now, it's also the last line of defense that undocumented immigrants would need to evade in order to continue north.
A new travel warning just in time for everybody headed to spring break. Specifically, those warnings are for parts of Mexico that may not be safe for tourists. Our border correspondent Oscar Margain live this morning from Progreso, and Oscar, as we saw a while ago, still not stopping people from going.
That's right, they're not stopping from going because they feel relatively safe. And despite the warnings that are out there, they say that they're willing to go into Mexico. So we decided to go in there as well, talk to some Americans, even some Canadians. They say it's not as dangerous as you might think. La propuesta de ley 640 del representante Terry Canales está siendo modificada para su apruebo en el Senado. Esta es la avioneta que agentes de la Oficina de Aire y Marina de los Estados Unidos llegaron a confiscar antes de que despejara del aeropuerto internacional de la ciudad de McAllen. Una avioneta valuada en los cientos de miles de dólares, una avioneta de 1978. Ahora, agentes nos indican que ellos recibieron inteligencia el pasado domingo por la tarde de que inmigrantes serían traficados hacia el interior del país. Para la paciente esta es una navaja de doble filo. Por una parte es importante sacar esa silicona de su pierna para que este no cause otros daños irreversibles. Al mismo tiempo, el exponerse a la cirugía es otra oportunidad de riesgo que pudiera traer otras complicaciones. Estas son las imágenes de un dron del periódico del Mañana del centro comercial completamente consumido por el humo y las llamas. No saben si ha valido la pena, sin embargo, lo intentaron para un mejor futuro para sus familias y pues bueno, no saben cuál será el futuro ahora que han sido detenidos. Entrenamiento con armas de alto calibre es lo que la policía de La Joya dice necesitar para poder contrarrestar la creciente amenaza proveniente de la frontera sur.
A border wall built by Texans with Texas materials. To the Trump administration, that may sound like a winning idea. At least that's what one group of Houston contractors are pitching to Washington. And they've decided to build a prototype to prove it. Border correspondent Oscar Margain has the story now from Brownsville.
These construction workers are laying the foundation of what a Houston company believes is a long-sought solution to securing the border between Texas and Mexico.
Rio Grande River is 1,000 or 2,000 feet that direction, and this fence is a big expensive mistake.
Don Cameron is a co-founder of Border Wall Builders. He came to Brownsville to build this prototype, 2 parallel 10-foot tall chain-link fences with a 30-foot wide no man's land situated between.
You can put razor wire, non-lethal electric shock wire. You can have TV cameras. Without a no man's land, you cannot have those things.
It's a proposal that has already been rejected by the Department of Homeland Security. A rejection, Cameron says, came because the wall didn't meet the height requirement of 18 feet.
From Brownsville to Zapata.
But Cameron and his team are so convinced their fence would get the president's approval, with a price tag of $4 to $8 million per mile compared to $8 to $25 million estimated by the White House. Cameron argues his fence would save time and money, paid for not by Mexico or from taxes, but in a bold proposal by donors through their GoFundMe account.
I believe that one tweet from President Trump, and there would be millions of dollars.
One tweet from Trump, and Cameron says he'll get to work. But first, they have to finish the prototype, which will be on display at Rusty Monsi's property for everyone to visit.
It's going to help everybody. Why should I object?
Monsi's is lending the land. He feels the current fence stretching across the border failed.
You want a contractor from Texas working here, using local labor, local materials. That goes back into the economy, the local people.
Ultimately, what everyone here wants is to put a stop to illegal smuggling. They know it's a long shot.
When you see that razor wire glistening in the sun, it sends a message, stay away from me.
Now, there are some flaws with this proposal. For one, they say that the government won't need to take people's property through eminent domain. However, there is a lot of private land here that runs up to the river. Also, they haven't explained how is it that they're going to reimburse donors if the project never takes off. Now, they've been working on this prototype for the past 3 days, but once they're done, they want to go to D.C. and hope to score a meeting with Team Trump. In Brownsville, on the Texas-Mexico border, I'm Oscar Margain reporting. Facebook videos like this one, or any post on the internet for that matter, can be used against you. If you're a foreigner applying for a visa, residency, or even to become a naturalized citizen, you could land on the government's radar. And yes, it would be legal. The Department of Homeland Security says this is not new. In fact, DHS says it has been monitoring social media since 2012. Now it'll become an official form of record keeping beginning October 18th. The plan is to identify information on the web that poses any potential threats. DHS made the announcement in the Federal Register, saying it will track and record aliases, social media handles, and anything that's open source or public information. Privacy and civil rights advocates like Efren Olivares believe this infringes upon free speech.
If you have political opinions that are contrary to the current government, can you post them without worrying whether that will jeopardize your eligibility or whether they approve you for a certain immigration benefit or even admission into the country?
What was most surprising to Olivares is that green card holders and naturalized citizens will also have their social media information collected and stored in their permanent immigration file. DHS says this collection of data will continue with all immigrant groups and will stop such monitoring once a person becomes a citizen. For those looking to apply, in process of applying, or currently hold an immigrant status, you should be mindful of what you put on the World Wide Web, says Olivares.
The easy and safe thing to do is to close down all your social media accounts. I suspect most people are not going to want to do that. So the next best thing is to be careful what you post on there. Information about your family, your children, relatives, etc.
For the next 15 days, DHS will be allowing input from the public. You can submit your comments by following a link to the Federal Register that will be posted on our website. From the Texas-Mexico border, I'm Oscar Margain reporting.
So many brave men and women fought for our country, but for some, even military service hasn't been enough to earn citizenship.
Border correspondent Oscar Margain and photographer Jose Sanchez bring us a story of two U.S. military veterans who served decades ago, yet still struggle with their immigrant status.
Welcome to Nuevo Progreso, a small, vibrant town on the Mexican side of the border. But despite it being one of the more violent regions in Mexico, hundreds of Americans cross the Progreso International Bridge every day to get there. Of course, most make it a day trip. One of the exceptions is Jose Maria Martinez.
This is what it's all about, right here. Nothing else.
A decorated U.S. Marine who isn't allowed back.
I got deported 15 years ago.
Jose Maria was born in Mexico in 1949. At age 7, he says, he was brought to the U.S. by his parents.
When I crossed the river in 1956 with my family, we were legally, had a green card.
And by age 19, he heard his calling to fight for a country he deemed his in Vietnam.
It is the young men of our Navy Marine Corps team that we will see firsthand today in Vietnam.
When I signed on that dotted line, it was not just for a certain amount of time. It was for life. That's your good conduct medal, Vietnamese service medal.
But after 6 years, his service came to an end and moved back to South Texas. He started a family.
That's my daughter and my granddaughter.
But his struggle with PTSD continued. An urge for adrenaline, he says, led him to become a drug mule.
I smuggled twice and I got caught.
Jose Maria spent the following 5 years in prison. He was deported to Nuevo Progreso and stripped from his benefits in 2002.
They said, you didn't take the oath. I said, I took the oath to serve. I took the oath to die for my country. Is that not enough oath? I said, no.
This is it. This is where I feel safe.
Margain Cáceres was also born in Mexico, but unlike Jose Maria, she didn't serve during time of war. However, while deployed to Germany in the early 1980s, she was led to believe she would become an American after her tour.
I spoke with my CEO, and he said that we're going to work on it and we're going to give you your citizenship.
But that paperwork never made it back to the U.S. She's remained a legal resident ever since.
They assume that just because you are a veteran, you're a citizen already.
She says her anxiety worsened after one of her neighbors was taken in a recent immigration roundup by customs agents. Margain says she walks a straight line, knowing she could, too, one day be deported.
That's the worst part. That's the worst part. It's not going to go away until the problem is solved or until I get my citizenship.
Is that shocking to you?
It's shocking. I just can't imagine anything more un-American.
Freshman Congressman Vicente Gonzalez represents a district with about 40,000 veterans, many of whom enlisted as non-citizens.
They come home, they make a minor mistake, and next thing they're deported.
Specialist Barajas, founder and director of the Deported Veteran Support House.
The Deported Veteran Support House, an organization based in Tijuana, Mexico, says it has tracked 318 deported veterans across 36 countries, but estimates the real number to be in the thousands. While the Defense Department says about 18,000 non-citizens currently serve in the armed forces.
I behaved and I've done nothing wrong with the hope that the government will realize that yeah, we screwed up, but I paid completely.
At the end of the day, that's all the 67-year-old says he is fighting for, his benefits and a chance to visit his family freely.
It's funny how something so small can claim so much of your life.
Congressman Gonzalez met with top White House officials this week to discuss a bill that would repatriate deported veterans. Now, his office feels confident that they can work something out with President Trump. In Progreso, on the Texas-Mexico border, I'm Oscar Margain reporting.
When the sun goes down and most of the country sleeps, federal agents work around the clock to stop the flow of illegal drugs and people at the U.S.-Mexico border. It's an effort that doesn't always prove successful, especially under the cover of darkness. Border correspondent Oscar Margain reports.
As the sun sets on the ranch lands of Falfurrias, Texas, night falls with it, leaving few sources of light. Tonight, We ride with the U.S. Border Patrol along one of the most trafficked areas by human smugglers and undocumented immigrants along the southern border, seeking to make it past the Falfurrias checkpoint undetected.
Hi, how you doing?
The inspection station is located 68 miles north of the Texas-Mexico boundary in the middle of rural Brooks County. It's the last line of Border Patrol defense undocumented immigrants try to bypass before they fall through the cracks of our immigration system.
So in order to go through the checkpoint, either you're going to take your dope and narcotics or your people through the checkpoint, or you're going to drop them off south of the checkpoint and have them go around the checkpoint to get north.
Coyotes do this in broad daylight.
I'm going to pull over and just kill the lights to show you how dark it actually gets out here.
And under the cover of darkness, says Border Patrol agent Pedro Cantu. Cantu has worked these 1,500 square miles of private ranch land for several years, tracking footprints with the aid of night vision technology.
So we got 1 here, 2, 3.
Border Patrol calls the process sign cutting. Smugglers are aware of this process. That's why they try to erase their tracks to throw agents off their path.
Their techniques are always evolving, always growing. They're trying to outsmart us. So it's a cat and mouse game on what they can do to not get caught.
Like chasing a ghost, agents begin to follow the trail of one person's shoe print.
I got a print going westbound up here, chevrons on top of the boot.
The caliche terrain can make it difficult for agents to decipher how long ago the person traversed through this property.
Where did you come from? Where did you go?
And therefore are unable to find him. Fewer and smaller fragmented groups of immigrants complicate the search, a trend that reflects this year's overall decline in illegal border crossings.
You know, if you want to continue walking the caliche west,
those are the ones caught. The question is, how many sneak through?
The 2 parcels that we own are about 5,000 acres.
Javier Perez owns La Copa Ranch, located a few miles south of the Falfurrias checkpoint.
People cross here all the time. You know, it's just every day.
Other than this hot spring in La Copa Ranch, finding a source of water or shelter is nearly impossible around here, reducing the chances of survival if left stranded.
I mean, you can get disoriented very quickly. You know, you can get lost, you can get dehydrated, you could be, you know, running around in circles and not knowing where you're going.
Walking these border ranch lands can be deadly. According to the South Texas Human Rights Center, 41 human remains have been found this year alone in just this section of the border, 61 in all of 2016. 130 deaths were recorded by Border Patrol last year in the entire Rio Grande Valley sector.
Just have on whenever you're ready.
It's now the break of dawn. A Border Patrol camera sensor is activated.
As soon as it gets daylight, they can see, okay, we need to get in the brush and get some cover.
And agents pick up a trail of a larger group.
So you can see how it's matted down, so easily 10 plus, maybe 15.
The fresh prints prompt Cantu to move a couple miles north to cut ahead of the pack. Time is of essence. The immigrants have already walked around the checkpoint.
Yeah, they're walking right here.
Border Patrol ATVs are deployed, and more units tried closing in on the group, but it's too late.
Another one bites the dust.
A group of immigrants made it far enough to be picked up by human traffickers and got away.
Lost it.
Coyotes have made about $500 per immigrant smuggled.
I mean, we win some, we lose some, but all we got to do is keep trying, right?
For Cantu and the rest of the agents, it's back to the starting line, hoping next time their efforts will pay off.
It's the challenges of manpower, infrastructure, and technology that we're lacking. As an agent, we don't really get discouraged on it. We just got to continue doing what we do and continue our job every day.
Illegal crossings come in waves and trends. It may rise and fall like day and night and repeat itself again and again. In Falfurrias, near the Texas-Mexico border, I'm Oscar Margain reporting.
Okay, one South Texas man is setting a very high bar for himself, determined to become one of the oldest persons ever to climb Mount Everest, and he's training for it in one of the most unexpected places. Border correspondent Oscar Margain brings us the story from Brownsville, Texas.
In one word, how would you describe Mr.
Achiever.
Very strong.
energetic.
He may not seem like a bird or a plane, but the people who know him could very well be describing Superman. At age 72, Ramiro Herrera has run in 56 marathons across the country. He's been running since he was 8 years old, but he's about to face his greatest challenge, Mount Everest. In May, Ramiro spent 2 weeks hiking 45 miles to the base of the mountain, which is about halfway to the summit, after several travel companies refused to take him. It takes an average of 2 months to reach the top. 4 people reportedly died that same weekend trying to make the hike. But if Ramiro is to conquer the Everest, he's going to need a training partner. Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Not saying that partner is me, of course. It's nearly 100 degrees out here. We're at sea level in South Texas. How do you train in this climate for Mount Everest?
Well, I train all the time right here because I train in the hot weather. When I run in the cold weather, it's better for me because I don't sweat in the cold weather.
Ramiro also claims he's never been sick in his life. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, just run.
From the 6 miles to 12 or 16 miles a day.
A day?
A day.
Word of his first attempt has made him a local hero of sorts, inspiring those around him to follow his footsteps.
I always go with him anywhere he goes.
Including his wife San Juana, who never leaves his side, even if that means going to a place where there's always a chance he may never return.
Because I like him. I like how he runs and how he struggles himself, and he always wants to do that.
San Juana's goal is to help him get sponsors before he returns to Nepal in March. Climbing Mount Everest can set a person back about $85,000, she says. That's pretty steep. But Ramiro says the greatest return to people's investment in him is his health.
The exercise is the best life insurance I can buy.
And that's probably the most important lesson I have learned today. To chase your dreams, that is. Reporting in Brownsville from the Texas-Mexico border, I'm Oscar Margain, and I'm out of breath.